right, so I'm probably a little bit more late than others, but I just got finished watching the small gameplay trailer for Mafia: The Old Country and then the breakdown from the creators and the developers of the game. Now, for those of you that don't know, I'm a huge Mafia fan. I mean, we've played all three of the games. We played the definitive edition here together. We played a little bit of the second game together, you know, back in the day, back in like 2021 when we used to be a Let's Play channel. When Mafia: The Old Country got announced, I was like, sign me up. And this one takes you back even further. It takes you back to the 1900s in Sicily. It says, uncover the origins of organized crime in Mafia: The Old Country, a gritty mob story set in the brutal underworld of 1900s Sicily. Fight to survive as Enzo Favara and prove your worth to the Cosa Nostra in this new story. So the game looks phenomenal. I mean, we had seen a cinematic trailer a while ago that didn't really give too much information about the game or give too much about how the game would play and stuff like that. But now with the gameplay snippets and some of the in-game cinematics, you get to see what type of game this is going to be. I mean, just from the vibe of it, it's completely different to Mafia 1, Mafia 2, Mafia 3. Those were set in like 30s, in the 40s, 50s. So we've always been in America. We've always been maybe in Chicago, or we've been in areas like that, New York, stuff like that. They weren't called that, but you know, that's basically where we were. And so this is a drastic change for the Mafia series, because now we go back to Sicily, where it all began, and it's a lot of open country. You're riding horses, you're riding some of the very first edition cars and vehicles that they had at the time. So it's just a very different game, a very different vibe. So to be honest, for some people it might feel too different. It might feel completely too different, and they might not necessarily like that. They might have liked the more golden age Mafia vibe that Mafia 2 gave, and maybe the earlier stage that Mafia Definitive Edition gave. So it definitely will take some adjustment, in my opinion. But I think that the main point of Mafia: The Old Country, the main point of the Mafia series, just like the president of the company, Hangar 13, said in his video, is that they've always shot for immersive storytelling. That has always been basically their bread and butter. And that's the truth. I mean, when you play Mafia, when you play these games, that's what you want. You want an immersive story. You want a linear, powerful, good story. Now, the game looks incredible and the story looks awesome. Enzo Favara looks like an intriguing character, right? The developers also stated that he's one of the best in-game protagonists that we've seen in a long time. And he didn't say that we've seen in the Mafia series. He said that we've seen in a long time. And I assume that he just meant in gaming, period. So that's a big statement, but the way that Enzo looks, the way he's rendered, the way that he goes through different stages in his life, as you can clearly see in the game trailer, like he looks younger, then a little bit older, and then a bit more older. So like we might see Enzo's full life, or at least from the very beginnings as a young kid to a full-grown adult, and kind of seeing what happens in this Mafia story. So clearly it looks like they took a lot of time making Enzo look unique, feel unique, and be a very unique character. Be maybe one of the best characters that the Mafia series has written. And to be quite honest, that's a pretty big task. Because, you know, Vito Scaletta is beloved, and in my opinion, Tommy Angelo is even better. I know that that's like a crazy take, but that's just, I feel that way. So I think, could Enzo be better than both of those characters? Again, that's a big task, but you know, never say never. The game does look incredible. And with GTA 6 being canceled, to be quite honest, diving into Mafia: The Old Country right now is probably great. Because, I mean, if the games were to be releasing like GTA and Mafia: The Old Country, if they were to be releasing around the same time, a lot of people would go out and buy both, but I don't know. I think it'd be tougher. I think if I'm able to enjoy Mafia: The Old Country fully right now and give that all my attention, then I want to do that. I think the story is going to be deep. I think it's going to be powerful. I think there's going to be a lot of twists. You know, the developers were talking about how every great crime story has a big twist, and they were teasing that towards the end something might happen that's unexpected and is going to leave us like mind blown. So it clearly looks like they are extremely confident in what they're doing and what they've done and the story that they're telling. And that's something that I just look forward to very, very much. I mean, story games, storytelling in video game, it's what I love. I love that above everything else, above multiplayers, above anything. That's why I love Call of Duty's campaign so much. That's why I love just gaming stories in general. I want good stories in this medium, and I got a feeling that Mafia: The Old Country is going to deliver something massive this year. And I think it's going to remind people how great Mafia truly is, because there's been a sour taste since Mafia 3. Even though the story could have been good, the gameplay mechanics and stuff like that at that point were really, really bad, and it was awful, you know, because Mafia 2 was so great that you expect expected Mafia 3 to end in greatness. And honestly, it was just, it was pretty bad, you know, and most of that was, again, due to gameplay mechanics. So I think they learned their lesson. I think they want to try something new. I think they dipped their toes into the mechanics and the way that they wanted the game to feel with Mafia the Definitive Edition, because they built that from the ground up. And I think that a lot of what I saw in Mafia the Definitive Edition, I'm going to see again in Mafia the Old Country, but better, but more polished, but more modern even, because, you know, that game came out 5 years ago. So I think there's a lot to be excited about. And the little knife fight that they showed really reminded me a lot of Naughty Dog's Uncharted 4 and that final fight. Like, it looks really cinematic, and it looks like they kind of went that route with some boss fights to make them really cinematic and feel the dangers. At least that's what the developers said. Now, we'll see how that actually plays out in terms of gameplay. Is it going to be fun? Is it going to get boring? Like, if you play it on more than one occasion, is it going to feel repetitive? So that's something to look out for. But one final thing that I thought was really good and really interesting about Mafia the Old Country is that the way that it looks, the way that it seems to feel, Hangar 13 could have easily charged $69.99 for this game base. They could have done that, and I don't think anybody would have complained. I really don't, because the new standard for video game pricing since the PS5 launched has been $69.99. Before that, in the PS3 era, in the PS4 era, it was $59.99. So we saw a $10 increase. Slowly but surely, we've seen other prices kind of go up to the $79.99. And now the big conversation around the gaming industry is that games will be costing $80. And there's been a rumor that GTA 6 might cost $100. So clearly, the games industry is having to figure something out with pricing. If you look at Nintendo Switch 2, their games are priced at $80. So is Mafia the Old Country or Hangar 13 kind of throwing a middle finger up to those developers and saying, hey, we can develop a really good game that looks great, that feels great, that's one of the better games that we've ever sold, and release it at $49.99? That is an incredible price in this day and age for a brand new game from a good developer, from a storied franchise. Selling at $49.99, that's like getting a new God of War game and getting it sold to you at $49.99 when the standard supposedly is $69. I thought that was a great win for gaming and a great win for people that love and wanted to play Mafia the Old Country. I am curious to see if their decision to price this game at $49.99 affects other developers, affects maybe other publishers and their games. Like, are they going to think twice before pricing their game? It really depends on how good Mafia the Old Country does in terms of sales and in terms of just being a good game. But finally, one thing that I did think is that potentially the game is going to be very short, and maybe that's why they're pricing it at $49.99. Maybe the game's story isn't going to be as long as maybe we're used to with some of these games. So I thought that could be maybe another reason, but that's just me being pretty negative, I suppose. I think Mafia the Old Country looks fantastic, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it.